Well, thank you very much, and I want to thank everybody for bringing me here all the way across the ocean to Dublin, and for this lovely lecture theater, which is very interestingly built. I think somebody said we need to fit 300 seats in a lecture theater. Well, how much room do we have? We only have this amount of room. Yeah, but how much room do we have vertically? Oh, vertically we're good. We could go forever vertically. Oh, in that case, we're fine. We can fit 300. This is not actually my first time in Dublin. This is my second time in Dublin. The first time was just this March. I was actually flying back from Munich, and my plane had an electrical failure. So I stayed inadvertently overnight in Dublin, which I thought was going to be great because I'd never seen the city and I get to wander around and see everything. And it turned out it takes forever to process people when a plane is delayed overnight. They have to get everybody off the plane into the hotels and everything. And they sent us to Blanchardstown. And that's where we're staying in Blanchardstown. I had to take a bus into the city. So by the time I got here, it was 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. And I'm walking around like, well, this city's not that great. Everything's closed. The only thing that was open was Professor Corky's Fun Time Emporium. And so, well, Ireland. You guys got a lot of pinball machines here in Ireland. Very interesting place. So I'm glad to be back during the daylight hours. You can actually see a little more of the place. I'm also glad to be positioned at this point in the afternoon when I'm the only thing keeping you from the wine. So don't worry, I'll try not to go over my time here. I suspect that one of the reasons that they invited me here was because, as they said, I tick several of the different boxes of types of science careers, and I'll talk about that. I'll tell you a little bit about what I do in the various boxes. And I wrote a book called Surviving Your Stupid Decision to Go to Grad School, which I'll read a few excerpts from. And at the end, I'll take questions and show a short video. But before I do any of that, I just wanted to start off with a true story about something that happened to me when I was in grad school. And this is where it becomes apparent to me that American graduate school is very different from Irish graduate school, because this story takes place during my 6th year of my PhD program. You don't have that, do you? You guys are like, oh, it's my 4th year, so this is getting pretty ridiculous. But no, we have a theoretically infinite amount of time for grad school. There is no restriction. There are some programs, master's programs, where they say it's a 2-year program. But for a PhD, in the sciences especially, it is theoretically infinite, which means you graduate when your advisor says, now, and not a moment sooner. So they tell you on your way in, the average is 5 years, and then really it takes you 7 or 8 or 9, and it's just a horrible time. I'm not kidding. This is absolutely, is anyone here from the States? Well, it's a big secret, and if anyone told people in the States, you just go over to Ireland and you get to graduate in 3 years, and you have better beer, they'd be gone. So during my 6th year, I was living a pretty typical grad student life. I was living in this crappy, rundown row house with 3 other grad students in an unsafe part of Baltimore. Anyone familiar with Baltimore? A couple people? It's not, there are nice parts of Baltimore. I did not live there. And actually, now that I think about it, Ireland does play a role in this story, because my landlord, the person who rented me this terrible house, he was Irish. I'm not making this up. His name was Pat O'Connor, and his wife's name was Pat O'Connor. And one day he came to fix a ceiling fan, and he was too short, so he brought his nephew to fix it, and his nephew's name was Pat O'Connor. And he would never believe us when we told him there were things wrong with the house. I would say, Pat, there are cockroaches in the basement. And he'd say, oh no, they're just water bugs. I'm like, well, okay, whatever you choose to call them on your lovely Emerald Isle, they're these tiny little bugs, and they crawl on me in my sleep, so can you please? It was a terrible house. We had ants, we had mice. I woke up one morning at like 3 o'clock in the morning because my chest was itching, and I reached up to scratch it and found that I was holding a cockroach the size of a small potato. It was in my hand. I never saw it because the lights were off, but I threw it across the room instinctively. I heard it hit the opposite wall. I turn on the light. It's gone, but on my pillow is one tiny leg. So I wanted to graduate at this point. I was ready to get out of there. And so the 6th year of your PhD is kind of like the 10th month of pregnancy. You're just like, I should be done by now, but I'm not. And actually, I would start doing these things that American grad students do, which don't help. I would start imposing these false deadlines. I would say, okay, well, I can't still be in grad school in July because I'm getting married, and that would be ridiculous. And so, of course, I'm still in grad school in July. But I can't still be in grad school in September because I'm going to move out of the city. I'm going to move an hour away, so I'm not even nearby. So that would be ridiculous. So I commuted from an hour away for another year. But none of that had happened yet. This story is while I was still a naive young sixth year. And on this particular day in my sixth year, my advisor comes up to me in the hallway and he tells me that he wants some data. Now, you have to picture my thesis advisor. He was a short, angry Peruvian biophysicist named Ernesto. And all Ernesto would do is sort of waddle around and yell at you. And he never asked you for data. He just told you he wanted data. He told you when he wanted it, and then he would just walk away. And you have to start thinking about, do I even have the data he's asking for? And on this day, he came up to me in the hallway and he said, I need you to get me this data for the department seminar we're going to have on Friday. And he was gone. And the problem was the amount of data that Ernesto was asking for was so much more than the amount of data that I had. And I didn't want to tell him. Has that ever happened to you guys? You can't walk into his office and say, sorry, Ernesto, I was playing a lot of online Scrabble. I don't really have that much data. So I started thinking, all right, is there any way I could get him the data by the deadline, and then I wouldn't have to confess I didn't have it? And I did some calculations, and I figured that I could get him the data he wanted when he wanted it if I worked 21 hours a day for the next 3 days. Now, if this is the real world, this is where you go to your boss and say, sorry, I can't get you the data when you need it. But this is not the real world. This is grad school. So I'm still waiting for him to say, now, so I could graduate. And he hadn't said it yet. So I said, all right, let's get started. So I've got this whole thing running. I'm running 2 machines at once, and this one's running while I'm cleaning this machine. It's a whole complex ballet. And there's even a time in the evening when they're both running at the same time for about 15 minutes. I can run out and get a sandwich, come back and eat it in the hallway. And my plan was to sleep from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. both nights. 2 a.m., I finish exactly when I'd hoped to. It's perfect. I get both machines cleaned and stored. I get on my bicycle. I go home. I take 1 step into my bedroom to go to sleep. And that is when I realize that I am standing in about an inch of human sewage. Because that was the other thing about this house, this wonderful, brilliant house rented to me by Pat O'Connor. Anytime something went wrong related to liquid, it always went to the lowest possible place, which was the basement, which was my bedroom. And apparently one of my housemates had flushed a tissue, and that broke the 90-year-old plumbing system. And sewage had been spraying into my bedroom all day. Well, I didn't know this at the time. All I knew is that whatever this was, it was wet and smelly and soaking into my sock. And I just thought, oh, but it's 2 a.m. and I have to get up at 5 a.m. And my bed is right there. You see my bed as this dry oasis in the sewage. And anything I can do to solve the problem is going to take time out of my 3 hours that I need to sleep. Right? Maybe I could call a friend at 2 in the morning, go sleep at his house, but that's going to take, what, half an hour by the time I get there and get situated? And maybe I could go upstairs and sleep on the sofa, but the sofa is like 4.5 feet long. It has wooden arms. I'm not going to be able to sleep there. I need 3 hours to stretch out on the bed. And so I think, all right, here we go. And well, that's the sound that produced most of the sewage. I'm glad that sound's continuing. Thank you, sound. This is part of the construction of the giant 5-story hole across the street, isn't it? Whoever has to live in that basement, think of all the sewage they're going to get when something goes wrong. So I run over to my bed. I actually touch the ground a couple of times. I take a flying leap, and I land on the bed on my knees. I rip my socks off, and I throw them in the corner, and I put my legs under the covers. And I am about to go to sleep, and then I realize that my comforter on the bed had been touching the floor, and it acted as a siphon, pulling the sewage up into the bottom half of the bed. But it's 2 a.m. I have to get up at 5 a.m. And I'm already here. I just think, oh, fuck it. I don't have any open cuts on my feet. So I slept in sewage for 3 hours. 5 o'clock, my alarm goes off. I get up, I get on my bicycle, I go right back to the lab. I work for 21 hours straight. I get back on my bicycle, I go back home, I sleep in sewage again because I didn't have time to solve the problem during the day. I wake up, I go and do 21 more hours. At the end of this whole process, I finish exactly when I planned to. I get all my data, I put them in these charts and graphs and tables, and I email it all to Ernesto. And I go to that department seminar, and I guess that's just going to happen with the sound, that's okay. I go to the department seminar, and I am exhausted. I am very tired. I don't smell very good. I start thinking, this man just stole 63 hours of my life. In fact, he's taken 6 years of my life. But on the upside, I got the data. I mean, I got it when I intended to get it, and that's something. He's going to show the data at the seminar, and all the professors in the audience, they're going to say, wow, that's great data. The student who got that data, he should graduate. I mean, at this point, I'm delirious because I haven't slept, and so this is what makes sense to me. And Ernesto begins his talk, and he's going through the different projects in the lab, which is what you do at a department seminar, and he says, here's what Jeff is working on, and here's what Sandeep is working on. And then he says, in conclusion, thank you all for coming. He didn't use my data. He never used the data that I sent him that night after that 63-hour data binge. And it just occurred to me as I'm sitting there in the room and everyone else is filing out, just think, you know, this whole episode was just a perfect metaphor for grad school in general, because you are overworked, you are tired, you are unappreciated, and sometimes you are buried in shit. So I decided to write this book. Are you running to see if you can turn off the sound? That'd be neat, thank you. I don't want to stop them from doing, I mean, now you guys are going to have to wait on another year to get that hole dug up and turned into something just because there's one guy, he stopped us. We had the most important jackhammer and we couldn't use it all day. Hopefully not. So what did I do after grad school? I mean, everyone who's spoken has sort of talked about their career path and how they've gotten where they are. I went from college directly to grad school because it was kind of the thing you do when you're a nerd. I mean, it's just sort of, if you're someone who likes school, you just stay in it. And so I did. It took me 7 years to get my PhD. And then as soon as I got it, so if you look at the 10 types of scientists that were described this morning, I wrote down, I think I now fall into the category of developer/translational scientist. My grad school lab, we were working on new drugs for malaria. But early drug discovery is weird because all you do is you look at the protein you're trying to inhibit, you try to come up with an organic molecule that'll fit right in that active site to inhibit it, and you show that it's not going to inhibit other proteins that you do want to keep working in your body. That's what you tell yourself you're doing. What you're really doing is you have your collaborators in an organic chemistry lab send you whatever compounds they can make, because they can't make all the things you dream of. You test them, you find out how strongly they bind to each protein, and you publish the results, and then you walk away and say, I'm done. And you say, promise exists. I've shown that promise exists. And that's all you do in early drug discovery. And that would be great if there were other scientists saying, promise, oh my goodness, well, I'm going to go leap on that and turn that into something. But no, instead you've got all these labs publishing promise exists, and everyone else glancing at their papers and saying, oh good, scientists are really working a lot. So I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. I wanted to be a part of the next step that says, okay, we as scientists have done a lot of research. Let's take one of the ideas that's promising and actually turn it into something. So that's what I'm doing now, hopefully. I'm working at a small biotech company. We have about 50 people. It's a company that's maybe 12 years old. It's called Sanaria, S-A-N-A-R-I-A. We're working on a vaccine for malaria. So that's where the name came from. Malaria came from malaria, the Italian meaning unhealthy air, because they thought it came from swamp gases. And so Sanaria means healthy air. I didn't think of the name, but that's the name. It's better than some of the rejected names. I'm told they rejected the name proboscis. I mean, it's a good thing they did. That's a dumb name. So I've been working there for 6 years, and we have a malaria vaccine in development, and it's actually in clinical trials. And we published, I'm not going to go into this too much, but we published one of the results of our first clinical trial about a year ago, and it demonstrated that the vaccine worked. In our highest dose group, we protected 100% of the people. So now our next step is put it into a lot more people and see what happens, and that's what we're doing. And that, to me, is a lot more exciting than putting a protein in a calorimeter and saying, well, I can publish this number. Someone's going to see my number and say he published a number. So I like this a lot. And even if the vaccine doesn't work, I will at least be working on something that tries to make a difference. So it's not like that. Remember that chart she showed earlier with all the arrows? You got that skinny little arrow going to professor. I think a lot of people look at that and say, ooh, it's so hard to win. But it's not winning becoming a professor. It's just an option. It's one thing you can do if that's what you want to do. So throughout all this, I've been doing other things in the general science realm, a lot of very small, weird little things like judging science fairs. I've judged high school science fairs, which is a lot of fun. If you have the opportunity to do that, I highly recommend it, because you learn a lot about how students are taught science and what students don't do and don't understand. I think the worst science project I ever judged, and these are seniors, so 12th grade at a magnet school for arts and sciences, a special school where the top science, or math and sciences, for math and science students. Here's their project. It was a brother and sister who did this together. Their hypothesis was that junk food causes bad breath. So for 2 weeks, the sister ate only healthy food, and the brother ate only junk food. And every night they would breathe in their mother's face. And if she thought they had good breath, she'd give them a smiley face sticker, and bad breath was a frowny face sticker. At the end, they counted up the number of stickers and found that junk food causes bad breath. This was a high school graduating project at a school for the sciences. So I found it very interesting to see what it is we think we're teaching kids and what they're actually picking up, what they think science is when they graduate. There's another student, his project was, I made Jell-O. That was the project. My hypothesis was that I will make Jell-O. The conclusion is that I made Jell-O. And that is what happens when a high school makes a science fair mandatory. That's what I found. So I did things like that. Basically, I agreed to any opportunity that came along, because you're not going to, you never know when you're going to get another opportunity, and you never know which things you're going to enjoy. I taught writing for many years, and it was a writing class where the subject was public perception of science. So somehow, as a second-year grad student, I ended up in the right place at the right time when they were looking for someone to teach a writing class. And it got to the point where when I graduated, when I got my PhD, I was simultaneously a grad student in the biology department and a faculty member in the English department, which was weird because it meant I could hide out in one office when I didn't want people in the other office to see what I was doing. That was fun. All kinds of things like that. And I started at some point trying to do stand-up comedy, because that seemed like a way to get over my innate fear of people, which I have. It's very intimidating talking to people, and maybe some of you feel this way too. People are scary. I still am not good at looking people in the eye. It's a lot easier to look people in the eye when you've got 50 people and you can take turns looking at people in the eye than when you're talking to one person face to face. So that's really why I started doing it. I ended up having a lot of fun with it, and I still do it now. And one of the great things about having this book has been that I've been allowed to travel around to all kinds of places and give talks at places like this and all over the United States and a few in Europe, and talk about grad school and talk about science. I think one of the strangest places I went was a college right in Washington, D.C., where I live, called Catholic University. It's the Catholic University of America. Before I spoke, they actually made me sign a waiver promising that during my talk I would not profess any values that were counter to those of the Catholic Church. And I actually asked the guy, I said, you know, I don't think I'm going to. I'm not really talking about anything controversial, but like if I did, what's the worst that could happen? And he said, well, you could actually get in trouble with the bishop. Really? What's the bishop going to do to me? He can only move diagonal. Come on. He's on a black square, I go to a white square, we're fine. Anyway. So I've gotten to do things like that, and as they mentioned, I write this column called Experimental Error, which is a humor column in the journal Science. Why the journal Science has a humor column, I don't know. I feel very lucky to be the one who gets to write it. And I'm writing I'm writing some other science things first. Have anyone heard of the Journal of Visualized Experiments? It's a new journal, only shows videos. So the publications are videos, which is neat because for some fields, you can explain things a lot better by video than you can in print. So in the next month or two, I'm going to be filming a web series called Ask Adam About Grad School, which I film in my house while my kids are asleep playing with my daughter's toys. So it's very strange. I don't even know if it's going to be funny. I don't know if anyone's going to like it, but it's there. And saying yes to everything means doing a lot of weird things, which may not even be tangentially related to science. I opened doors at a Kenny Loggins concert wearing a tuxedo once because somebody said we need someone to do that. I have been killed at murder mysteries. Corporate murder mysteries are ridiculous. They'll invite an entire company to come, and during their party, someone is killed, a murder is committed, and who did it? And so I was the guy that was killed. And the detective is actually an actor from The Wire. That was kind of neat. So meanwhile, all these people from the company aren't paying attention at all because they're just drunk. They're just coming to get drunk, and that's their whole retreat. So I've been killed. And one of the strangest things that I've done that I'm actually going to do this Sunday, a couple days from now, right when I get back while I'm still jet lagged, I am going to put on a fake beard and a black hat and a black robe and pretend to be an Orthodox rabbi at somebody's wedding. That's what I mean by I take anything that comes along. It's strange. I don't know who wants Orthodox rabbis at their wedding, but I've done this nearly 100 times now, and people will pay for a fake rabbi to come and pretend to be lost and make fun of their relatives. And that's what they do. They talk to you on the phone in advance and say, oh, Grandma so-and-so, you have to make fun of the fact that she always plays bridge. And so you walk in and you say, oh, where's Grandma so-and-so? There she is. Why aren't you off playing bridge? And the whole family is like, yeah, she plays bridge. I don't know why people pay money for this, but they do. So you can find, if the point of a day like today is to show you that careers you never imagined exist, I can't imagine any other career that you could not imagine any more than that career, if that makes any sense. So, fake rabbi, yes. I went into science, I think, for the same reason that a lot of people do, and maybe the same reason that a lot of you did, which is that while you're growing up, when you're learning what science is, you are lied to. From a very early age, you're lied to by that guy in a lab coat who comes into your class in elementary school, remember, and he's got a banana and a bucket of liquid nitrogen, and he dips the banana in liquid nitrogen and smashes it on the desk, and all the kids are like, oh my God, that's what science is? Science is awesome! Well, now we know, don't we? It's not quite like that. I keep waiting for the day when my supervisor is going to come in and say, all right, here's the situation. All we have are 10 plastic drinking straws and a meter of Scotch tape. Now we have to build a device that'll let us throw this egg out the 4th-story window without it breaking, or they won't renew our grants. You guys have that project in Ireland, the egg drop project? Why is that so universal? Everywhere I go. What's it supposed to teach you? Gravity? Still working. Hey. We had that project in, I think, 3rd grade, but we were allowed to use any materials we wanted to keep our egg from breaking. So I remember I just wrapped my egg in like 30 or 40 additional eggs. The whole thing out the window, kids are like, hey, your egg broke. Nope, my egg was that one. Which is pretty similar to how we do science today, isn't it? So I'm told that you guys do not, you don't teach undergraduates. Does anybody here teach undergraduates? No, so that's not something that happens at this campus. But many places I go, it's an integral part of graduate education that you're a TA, a teaching assistant, and you grade exams and you proctor exams in rooms like this one, which is, you're just standing up here for 3 hours while everyone's taking the exam, and all you have to do is look around and try to figure out who's cheating, but they're all cheating, and just answer the same stupid question over and over again. And they raise their hands like, yeah? I can't answer that for you. I can't answer, and they think they're being coy. They're like, oh, the way number 7 is worded, is it B? I can't answer that for you. We used to place bets on how many cheaters we'd catch during an exam. That's how we kept ourselves entertained. We called it Procter and Gamble. We had to grade lab reports too. So you guys have taken laboratory classes at some point in your careers. It's a good thing you don't have to teach them, because grading lab reports is the worst exercise you will ever have to undertake. Here's every lab report that I got when I was a biochemistry TA. Results. I got no usable data. I wouldn't have known what to do with it anyway. I spilled every liquid you gave me, and my lab partner caught fire. Conclusions. Overall, this lab was a success. That happens here too. Students start every conclusion section with overall, this lab was a success. Who is teaching them that sentence? I had a student who wrote that every single time, and he got a C- in the class. At the end of the semester, he said to me, "How'd I do?" I told him, "Well, overall." The grade was a success. I probably deserved all those bad lab reports because I did something not so nice to the students on the very first day of class. This is Johns Hopkins University, which is known for its medical school. So you have a lot of pre-med students, a lot of pre-medical students at Johns Hopkins who, pre-medical students are the most anal creatures on the planet, right? They have to get 100% on everything. And so they're very worried on the first day they're going to get a bad teaching assistant, a bad TA. They're not going to understand what's going on. So the very first day of class, I just walked in like this. Hello. I am TA. You don't know biochemistry. I don't know English. We learned from each other this semester. Oh, they hated that. It was not fun. So I'm going to read the first of two excerpts from the book. And I figured since I'm here at a medical school, it would be good to read from Chapter 6 of the book. Chapter 6 is called 6 Degrees of Exasperation, Law School, Business School, Medical School, and More. It's the extra little chapter on those bastard step-cousins of grad school. And this is a section on medical school specifically, but it's about something that I think relates to all of us, and that is remembering things for exams. The section is called Pneumonic Plague. Medicine is all about helping people. And apparently there's no way to help people quite like rote memorization of massive unpronounceable lists. Every med student knows the Hippocratic Oath, which states, above all, memorize massive unpronounceable lists. For example, you may find it's important to memorize the names of all the nerves in the wrist, because you never know when a patient might say, "Help, I have a kind of cancer that only kills me if someone can't name all the nerves in the wrist." Luckily, medical students have pioneered many memorization tricks. Choose your favorite from among the following. Flashcards. Flashcards are so convenient. If you write on each card one name or fact you need to memorize, all you have to do is bring a refrigerator box full of cards with you wherever you go. Then, during a particularly boring surgery, whip out the box and dig through the cards to find the series you want. Simple. Mnemonic device. Though there are many variations, a common mnemonic device involves using the first letter of every item in a list as the first letter of each word in an easily recalled sentence. For example, you can remember the names of all the bones in the human face, mandible, maxillopalatine, zygomatic, nasal, lacrimal, vomer, inferior nasal concha, simply by remembering the following sentence. The bones in the face are the mandible, maxillopalatine, zygomatic, nasal, lacrimal, vomer, and inferior nasal concha. Mnemonic devices are also commonly used to remember how to spell difficult words, such as the word mnemonic. Here's how. The word starts with M, and M stands for maybe you should just look elsewhere on this page because the word is correctly spelled there. Photographic memory. If someone tells you, "I have a photographic memory," that's code for "I'm a dick." Yes, memorizing pages of text at a single glance is useful, but even more useful in terms of graduating from med school with your friendships intact is pretending you can't. Rhymes. Rhymes are fun. Rhyme the condition you're trying to diagnose with its recommended course of treatment. For example, if the patient has cervical cancer, radiotherapy is the answer. Caution, never recite these rhymes out loud while treating an actual patient, especially one with cervical cancer. Association. This technique relies on the thoughts that naturally flow from one item to the next. For example, if you can't remember what to prescribe for Lyme disease, say to yourself, "Lyme makes me think of lemons." which makes me think of the song Lemon Tree by Peter, Paul, and Mary, which makes me think of their song Puff the Magic Dragon, which makes me think of the cartoon version, voiced by Burgess Meredith, who was in True Confessions with Charles Durning, who was in Starting Over with Kevin Bacon, and Bacon isn't healthy, so now I'm thinking about doctors, who are also called docs, so I should prescribe doxycycline. By this time, the patient is dead, but that's hardly the point. And finally, cheating. Anatomy exams are particularly suited for writing the names of your body parts directly on your body, since you'll always have it with you. Unfortunately, this technique may not work if you're studying internal medicine. So one of the other cool things that I've gotten to do being a scientist is apparently when you have a PhD, anyone will think that you are an expert on anything, and that's how I got on television. So one of the first things I did right after grad school is I was on a show, I don't know if they have it over here, maybe, maybe not, it's called Food Detectives. It was on the Food Network and the Cooking Channel. A couple people, really? It's actually here? You've seen the show? No, you haven't seen it, but okay. No one in the States has seen it either. It was hosted by Ted Allen. He's the guy who hosts the show Chopped on the Food Network. I don't know if you have that here either. Anyway, he had two shows going at once, and Chopped was his successful show. Food Detectives was the other one. It was like Mythbusters. Do you have Mythbusters here? Okay, which sounds like an Irish word, doesn't it? Mythbusters. I'm watching Mythbusters. What are you doing? I'm watching Mythbusters too. Adam and Jamie, they're doing all kinds of things on Mythbusters. What are they doing on the Mythbusters today? I don't know. They're busting a myth on the Mythbusters. I tend to think that any multisyllabic word that ends in ER sounds like an Irish word. Mythbusters. Anyway, so it was like Mythbusters, but about food science. And so that was my big reward. I spent 7 years getting a PhD in molecular biology, and then for a time, I was the world's foremost expert on the 5-second rule of dropping food on the floor. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this episode, don't eat food off the floor. That was about it. It was not a very cerebral show. I think the only reason they put me on the show is that I must have been the only scientist that they'd ever met. Because when they were coming up with ideas for episodes, they'd actually call me and ask me things like, okay, so we want to do a bit about intestinal gas. Can we feed beans to bacteria and film the bacteria farting? No, that's not how that, I mean, what have to, that's not what really happens. Like, well, okay, what kind of camera would we need? This is absolutely true. The producer, this guy Danny, he called me one day, and I told him they had to buy an incubator to grow bacteria for something else. I think we were testing the safety of wooden cutting boards versus plastic cutting boards. And he said, oh, I think I found this great incubator, and let me email you the specs. And I looked at it, and I said, yeah, that should work. That'll grow bacteria. And he said, good, because the guy who's selling it to me, he says it's a really top-of-the-line incubator. He says it holds temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. Yes, thank you for understanding what's wrong with that. Because no one at the Food Network did. I should have said, send it back. I need one that can do kelvins. And you know how many people at the Food Network would have understood what a kelvin is? Absolutely zero. Okay. Nobody ever liked that joke. I continue to make it because I like it. But yeah, and so now Food Detectives is over. Now I'm on a show that I think is showing in Ireland called You Have Been Warned. I don't know if anyone's seen that. No one's seen that. So I'm on these shows that nobody watches. But it's called Outrageous Acts of Science in the U.S. and around the rest of the world. It's called You Have Been Warned, and it's basically scientists making fun of YouTube clips, which is a lot of fun. We see someone blowing themselves up, and then cut to a scientist saying they blew themselves up because they added this to this. What an idiot! That's the show. So, no shortage of jobs out there. No shortage of television shows. And then recently someone, I mean, this is what happens when you're a scientist who communicates science. People will come to you with all kinds of random things. This, I think, is even more random than the fake rabbi thing. Someone just this spring said, we would like you to be on an episode of Secrets of the Kremlin on the Travel Channel, explaining this Russian scientist who tried to crossbreed humans and chimps in the 1920s. So there's a crazy Russian scientist who tried to crossbreed humans and chimps. He did this both ways. I'm not going to get into the anatomy of that, but he did it both ways. It did not work, of course. But the crazy thing is that the Russian government funded it. And so now I'm like, sure, I'll talk about it. I knew nothing about it, so I read Wikipedia, I go and sit in a chair, and someone will watch this on TV and be like, Adam Ruben, expert on chimps mating with humans. And I'll be like, well, the thing about chimps mating with humans. So that's where this all comes from. The thing about, I'm just going to check my time here. Okay. the thing about grad school that's good, the best part, and ostensibly the reason why you go to grad school is that you want to pick one course of study that you like more than anything else, and you only have to study that. And it's not like undergraduate where you have distribution requirements, you have to take classes in things that you're really not interested in. Like we had a foreign language requirement, and I don't know, ordinarily I like learning languages, but I was annoyed that we were forced to, and I was annoyed that they didn't offer the language I wanted to take. Because I remember walking into the registrar's office and saying, "Hi, I'd like to sign up for Pig Latin." And she gives me this look, she goes, "We don't offer Pig Latin." So I said, "Why not?" She said, "Nobody speaks Pig Latin." So I told her, "Alne isen le irhe." I we have he in be ingspe igpa and le only flight in where I he ulske aber I be eindine or sempe and we esente espe and we open it is gapte email and ekte orske especially uye ucking fe itch bay. So I ended up taking French. There are two things I really didn't like about French, the textbook and the workbook. Because we always got this textbook that was like 30 years out of date, had vocabulary you're never going to need, like La Discothèque. Why is that in there? Le 8-track. That's actually the French word, le 8-track. But the workbook was worse, and this is true of any foreign language workbook, because the workbook had to pretend that every exercise in it was a whole lot of fun. Remember? So it'd say things like, you are at a party where everyone is speaking in the future indicative. It's a likely scenario. Wow, do they have parties like that in France? You know, what do you want to do tonight, Jean-Luc? I don't know, Jacques, I thought we could go to the cinema, or perhaps the discotheque. Or, oh, there is this great party where everyone speaks in the future indicative. Sacre bleu, the future indicative. We will go to this party. Nobody likes that joke either out in the real world, I have to say. But I'm glad to be among people who know what the future indicative tense is. So I'm going to read one more excerpt from the book. And this is about something that some of you may be dealing with or may have dealt with, which is writing your dissertation. Is anybody doing that currently? Why are you here? Get out of the room. Go work on it. Now I sound like your significant others, don't I? Because that's what they do. Why aren't you working on your dissertation right now? Because I worked on it yesterday. Doesn't matter. Anyway. Whew, those were dark times. So are you guys who are working on it now, are you finished? Almost finished? Somewhat? Almost finished? Almost? You're just looking away. Are you finished? Almost? You've written like one page. Or you haven't begun at all? Hardly. But enough that you raised your hand earlier. Which is that wasn't you who raised your hand? Who raised it? I'm so sorry. Who's the fourth person? It was you. How are you doing on your dissertation?
Almost done.
Almost done. Okay, good. So those of you who have not gotten there yet, so in America we use the words dissertation and thesis basically interchangeably. And I don't know how your process is here, but we'll see how different it is because with us your thesis has to be read by a lot of different people, and you don't just submit it to your advisor and walk away, but you have an entire thesis committee. You have that here as well? And they assist you during the editing process, and that's what this is about. This section is from chapter 7 of the book. Chapter 7 is called Let My Pupil Go, Getting the Fuck Out of Grad School. I like that title because my dad thought of it. And the section is called Edit, Forget It. Want to calculate how long you'll spend writing your thesis? Good luck, you can't. You see, your thesis is not solely under your control. Instead, a whole group of distinguished professors works to ensure that your carefully crafted tome never ends up in vellum binding without their grubby little proofreader's marks. Between you, your advisor, and your thesis committee, there's a lot of give and take in the dissertation editing process. Specifically, they give you shit, and you take it. Or to put it differently, your thesis is the broth, and every so often you're forced to consult too many cooks. Or look at it this way. Your thesis is like a prison bitch, subject to frequent unwelcome input from external bodies. At Catholic University, they got very uncomfortable at that point, I should say. In order to escape grad school, you must obtain that rarest of commodities, the editorial consensus of a bickering, ego-dominated committee. To give you a sense of the revision process, pretend you've written a one-sentence thesis. The boy went to the store. Great, you're done, right? Wrong. First, you hand your thesis to your advisor for feedback. That's it, your advisor asks. You need much more detail. So you rewrite your thesis, adding detail. The small boy went to the candy store where he bought chocolate-covered blueberries. Your advisor says, reading your new thesis, the problem is that you have all that detail in there. You really should remove extraneous detail. What? Didn't your advisor just tell you to put the detail in? Yes, but today is a new day. Today, your advisor does not like detail. So you remove most of what you've just written. The boy went to the candy store. Now you've learned the first lesson. Never ask for your advisor's opinion twice. So you've got your thesis, and it matches your advisor's opinion du jour. Time to show it to your first committee member. Uh-oh, your first committee member calls you a failure as a scholar because you didn't reference his research. Time for a rewrite. The boy went to the candy store as he did in Douchebag et al. Your first committee member having been placated, you show the thesis to your second committee member. Douchebag, cries your second committee member, glaring at you incredulously. You're citing Professor Douchebag? He's completely irrelevant. If you don't remove your reference to Douchebag, I'll never approve your thesis. Okay, Douchebag disappears. Behold, the boy went to the candy store as has been seen previously. Oblique enough? Maybe, but guess what? Now your third committee member is unhappy. In my field, she tells you, we focus on the journey itself. Yes, you reply, but my dissertation isn't about your field. It's about my field. Nice try, but your third committee member cannot fathom a world in which all research doesn't relate to her field. Thus, the boy walked up Main Street and made a right on 3rd Avenue to get to the candy store, as has been seen previously. Your fourth committee member is the fun one. Unfortunately, fun doesn't mean fun. It means, ooh, I've got a fun idea for something you can add to your thesis. Rewrite it as lyrical Irish narrative free verse, squeals the committee member, clearly having so much fun with your thesis. Okay. The boy walked up Main Street and made a right on 3rd Avenue, diddle hi, diddle ho, to get to the candy store, as has been seen previously, hi-dee-dee, hi-dee-doo. Time for the last step in the process. Show the finished product once more to your advisor. Your advisor reads your thesis. You wait for judgment. Did you properly balance your advisors' and committee members' whims? Did you strike that rare and difficult balance between each of their narcissistic attempts to recast your thesis in their own style? Is your thesis acceptable? Your advisor emerges from his office after 3 months and hands you your thesis with a single written comment. No. Aha! A new game. The process has evolved from do what I say to guess what I'm thinking. So you rewrite. The boy walked, or maybe he didn't, to the store, blueberries, hi-dee-doo. Excellent, says your advisor. I completely approve. However, in the 2 years it's taken you to edit your thesis, the field has changed. Everyone already knows that the boy went to the candy store. You need a new topic. The girl jumped rope. But, you plead meekly, my life, just let me know when you're finished, interrupts your advisor, and I'll be glad to angrily provide comments. Oh, and make sure you've put in lots of detail. So those going through the process, is that fairly accurate to what you're going through? Those of you who aren't there yet, you've got something to look forward to. So in a minute, I'll show a video, but first I want to address the most common question that I get, which is, why did you hate grad school so much? And the answer is that I really didn't. I mean, the title of my book is Stupid, Stupid Decision, but I didn't hate grad school. There are a lot of things about it that I liked. But I think, people have said, well, if you're going to complain about grad school all the time, why don't you just drop out? And the fact is, complaining is something that grad students, it's like the national grad student sport is complaining. Is it the same over here? It's the same. I mean, you complain about everything. There's a lot to complain about. And I think those who say, if you're going to complain, get out, they undervalue the point of complaints. Because complaints are more than whining. Complaints are a way to identify what's wrong with something. And I liken it to having children. So I have 2 kids. My daughter is 3 and my son is almost 2 months old. And that means that, for example, it means last night I slept from when I went to bed until I woke up. And that's the first time that's happened in years. So thank you for bringing me here and allowing me to do that. That really doesn't happen. I woke up at 7:30 and I'm like, something's wrong. Did they die overnight? No, they're just in a different country. It's amazing. And that's just what happens when you have kids. You get up overnight to change diapers. You get up overnight because someone is crying and wants to sleep in your bed. Like my daughter is 3. She almost always ends up in our bed. She starts out in her own bed and then somehow she gets in our bed, which is fine, except that many mornings she wakes me up by kicking me in the face. And you think that you could prepare for something like that. After a while, you know it's coming, but you never know it's coming because you are asleep. And so every day is a new surprise. You just, and that's how I start my day. So, I have a friend at work who has kids, and we tell stories about our kids to each other. And just because we complain about our kids doesn't mean that we're not ultimately glad to have the kids. It's the same thing with grad school. There's a lot to complain about. Grad students need higher stipends, better defined ending dates like you have here in Ireland, a more clear process from the beginning to the end, all kinds of support. More clarity on what they can do after grad school, which is the point of today, and why I'm glad that you guys have a conference like this one. But that's the problem, and it's only by complaining that we can identify it. Grad students like to complain, but there's also a note of happiness behind the complaints. You say, oh, I spent 15 hours in the lab yesterday. But there's a little part of your brain that secretly loves this. There's a little part that's saying, I spent 15 hours in the lab yesterday. You say, nobody understands what I'm working on. There's a part of your brain saying, nobody understands what I'm working on. And it's a certain sort of person that likes this and is attracted to this lifestyle of the graduate student. And the one piece of serious advice that I have at the end of the book, and I should caution you, there's only one piece of serious advice at the end of the book. And I'm saying that because I don't want any more 1-star reviews on Amazon from people who say, there's no serious advice in this book. You wondered if authors look at the reviews on Amazon. We do, and we get very sad. I had someone recently give me a 1-star review and called me, and this is the exact quote, called me an unqualified pervert. Because, you've heard some of the dirtiest stuff in the book. There's some swear words, but that's about it. And unqualified pervert because of that. What I love is that I showed that review to my dad, and he said, that's ridiculous. You're completely qualified. Thank you, Dad. So the one serious piece of advice in the book is something that I learned also during my 6th year, because they told us going in that the average time to graduation was 5.25 years. There are 20 of us who entered in my entering class, and 1 person dropped out after the 1st year, and the other 19 of us were all still there in our 6th year. So we're kind of looking at each other like, do they not know what average means? Maybe they're taking the geometric mean and that one outlier skewed the whole day. So we didn't understand why none of us had graduated yet. And the faculty asked to have a meeting with us. And it was the most enlightening meeting I've ever been to, because the grad students said to the faculty, why haven't we graduated? And the faculty said to the grad students, why haven't you graduated? And I was like, what? So everybody thought it was somebody else's job to make sure that they were on track. We were waiting for them to say, now. And they're waiting for us to come to them and say, here's my plan, here's when I'd like to get out. And we weren't doing that because we were waiting for them. It's like during my 4th year, I had no papers. My name was not on any papers. My advisor, Ernesto, he liked to control all the papers going out of the lab. And I was complaining to my friends, I don't have any papers, you got a paper, I don't have any papers. What I should have done was taken a little bit more control, like I should have done in my 6th year. I should have gone to Ernesto and handed him a paper that I'd written. I should have written a paper and put it on his desk. And what's he going to do, throw it away? He might have, he was different, but most people know. So that's the one piece of advice. You might have more control than you think over your own education. And this is the time when they're kind of expecting you to say, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm interested in, these are my plans, please assist me with my plans, as opposed to, I will be in this thing that you have created and let's see what comes out. So in that way, grad school is actually a lot like writing or like comedy or like any other profession. You only get good at it by doing it a lot. And that means you're going to be doing it, so doing scientific research or doing writing a lot while you're not good at it. Grad school forces you to do research over and over again. It's about learning. It's not really about what you discover while you're here. One of the things that I wish I had done during grad school was to have deliberately gone and learned certain techniques. Because once you're out, there isn't as much of a training mechanism. I never took a statistics class. The result is, I don't know statistics. And shit, because I want to know statistics, there are a lot of times when they come in very handy in my work. And I could go and get a textbook and teach it to myself maybe, or go and audit a class maybe, but now I have to be at my job from 9 to 6 and I've got kids, and so I don't do it. And this is the perfect opportunity while you're here to do it. And the perfect opportunity to also look at what the jobs you might be interested in might require. So I'll take questions in a minute. Before I do, I'm going to show one short video. This is a video that I made to promote the book. And I don't know if any of you have actually even seen the video or not. Perhaps you have, but perhaps not. I'm going to allow. When did YouTube start asking that, by the way? Isn't that recent? It used to just be, I say full screen, and YouTube says, okay. Now it's like, do you want to allow it? Like, well, that's why I clicked full screen, dipshit. It's not because I thought my name is full screen. I'm going to click on that? No. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the grad student rap.
Sitting in my carrel, reading ancient Greek, thinking I should go and take a shower next week. 20 after midnight, looking like a slob, and I could have had a 9-to-5 job. But I'm a grad student, my glasses are squarish. I'm a grad student, publish or perish. I'm a grad student, got no time for TV. That's why they're giving me the 3rd degree.
I'm a free pen thief and a free food eater.
You should see the size of my curriculum vitae.
Among grad students, I'm the baddest dude. My classmates like me.
Yeah, we've been peer reviewed. Regrade request, let me think. Denied. I just put spinners on my sweet new ride. Cause I'm a grad student.
In a community of scholars, I'm a grad student.
I make dozens of dollars. I'm a grad student, and I'm sure you'll agree.
That's why they're giving me the 3rd degree.
I work in a lab with acids and bases. I study anti-malarial activity enhancement and hydroxymethylcarbonyl isotyr-based dipeptidyl mimetics targeting aspartic proteases.
My new results to be unveiled are experiments to show why my experiments failed. Bitchin' and screaming at Microsoft Excel.
Then go drink this HCl. This is my advisor, helping me advance. All he does is yell and apply for grants. He wants to know my progress, but I can't be found. Oh, looks like you dropped your grants on the ground.
Grants on the ground, grants on the ground. Looking like a fool with your grants on the ground.
Cause I'm a grad student, my hope is shrinking. I'm a grad student, what the hell was I thinking? I'm a grad student, I'm teaching for free. That's why they're giving me the 3rd degree. It's a sad and cruel existence.
Going to class as teaching assistants.
The college kids all disrespect us. I got no prospects, just my prospectus.
We try to teach them how to search print media,
but they all just copy Wikipedia. Don't beg for points or you'll regret it. I wrote my name, that's partial credit.
An in-class essay, now the students will ramble.
We bet on who's cheating, yeah, we Procter and Gamble.
Taking student loans just to have some money, paying them off till my kids are 20.
Every passing day makes me afraid.
Hey, just think of this as 23rd grade.
Without caffeine, I'll feel destroyed. It's my favorite xanthine alkaloid. After 12 years here, I'm a bit embittered.
Yo, crank that up, that's all things considered.
Hey, I almost got my PhD, MBA, MFA, EdD, DVM, DDS, MAng, VCR, JD, and my MD. Yes, but I'm ABD, so it's all BS. Yeah, I'm a nickel-saving, never-shaving, bagel-stealing, shame-concealing,
sunlight-hating, annotating, probably never graduating,
hardly caring, flash-wearing, moron, teaching, microfiching,
early rising, harmonizing, never-ever unionizing,
crap enduring, debt incurring, overnighting, thesis writing,
data mining, constant whining, I can't see the silver lining,
paper grading, tax evading, uninspired, very tired,
sniping, griping, always typing,